have a guest here today. Welcome to SoundPlex Studios. Hello, folks. Welcome to SoundPlex Studios, Studio A. We're here for another version of Local Lens broadcast, and we're here with a special guest, Cristine Vann of Root and Reach Creative. I met her about a month or so ago at a private event, and we really hit it off. And I brought her in for a meeting, and we had a discussion about maybe doing some creative content for the SoundPlex. And we sat down for, I think, about an hour and a half, and we really connected. So there was a lot of good synergy. And from that point on, we've kind of added her to the team here at SoundPlex Studios because this is a creative space, and I can't do everything myself. So I look to her to really start branching out and really putting out some really cool content. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But before we do that, I want her to introduce herself because she's a very interesting lady. I've only known her, like I said, for about a month or so. And but she's got a cool story, and she's very creative. And I see really eye to eye with her on a lot of things. So I'll let her introduce herself and tell us a little about you and where you're from and the history and how we even kind of connected and the business that you're in. So give us a little background.
Well, I've done a lot of things for work through the years, but I'm definitely at a point now where I've made a career pivot, and I'm in a place where I'm doing something I really enjoy, and I'm doing something creative. And I guess you could say it's kind of a passion. So I'm really enjoying it. So I started my business last summer. And it's really just because I love people, and I love hearing their stories, and I love hearing the reason why somebody starts a business or starts a brand or, starts a band.
Right.
And so that's kind of what the business has been about. And I just really wanted to help, small businesses, especially, to be able to communicate their stories in a creative way.
That would be me. So what did you do before you found your passion? Was there something that you were doing that was not so interesting, or was this just a natural, organic process of you kind of getting into this space?
Yeah, I mean, prior to that, I was a nanny for years. I love children.
Cool.
And I also had my own cleaning business, so I was doing that for a long time. And I was in a place in my life where it was time to kind of take back some of my time for myself, and I was ready to kind of break out on my own and work for myself. And it just kind of evolved naturally over the years. I would help friends start businesses. I would help them, fine tune the messaging of their business. And I would just do that for fun because I loved my friends and I wanted to help people with their businesses. And one day I was with a friend and I said, I'm not sure what I want my next move to be, but I know I need a career pivot. And she said, why don't you do what you've been doing for years, helping people and helping small businesses? And I thought, yeah, maybe I could do that.
That's great. And the fact that you were a cleaning person before, so you could do my social media and you can clean the warehouse at the same time.
Absolutely. You should see me with a Swiffer.
I can't wait. So our next meeting, we're going to bring the Swifter into play. Okay, how's that sound?
Sounds good.
Root and Reach is an interesting name. Tell me how you came up with that name and what it means, because I think it's really interesting because you explained that to me, but explain it to the folks out there.
Yeah, so I'm actually, anybody who knows me knows I'm a crazy plant lady. I love plants. So the Root and Reach just really worked. And I was also doing, I had a little side hustle where I was doing biophilic interiors. So I was going into homes and offices and I was designing with plants to help bring more of that natural feel to a space. So I wanted kind of a name that reflected my love of plants, but also I feel like Root and Reach really fits what I'm trying to do to help small businesses. Root is that like foundational, like what are your values? What's at the core of your business? Making sure that it's stable. But then the reach is like out to the community, the expansive side, making sure you're reaching the right people, things like that. So that's kind of how the name came about.
It's amazing you bring that up because I have this tapestry, which is like the tree of life. And the tree actually makes so much sense in just about everything. Like you see pictures of lungs, it looks like a tree. But now when you talk about business, you're right. You have to establish roots in your foundational part, the foundational part of your business before you can start sending out those branches and start expanding and growing. That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And you came up with that.
Yeah, I love analogies
that's
too.
Cool.
So
that's really
that
cool.
works.
I love that. And sometimes I have to ask this question because for me, it was pretty organic how it all came about that I started running SoundPlex Studios. But for you, was there a specific moment in time that were you dealing with a particular client, or was there just a light bulb went off in your head and said, this is really what I want to do. This is my passion. Was there anything specific about that moment that you can remember?
I would sometimes put together like photo shoots for friends, and we would just kind of like come up with a fun concept, and I would help them figure out the outfits and where we were going to go shoot it and what kind of the idea was for it. And we were really just doing it for fun. But then so much beautiful content would come out of it, and I would post it, and I'd get so much feedback on it, and I'd even get like messages from people who thought I did it for work, and I'd be like, no, we're just having fun. Like,
Right.
I'm not doing, websites or social media or anything. And I think that's kind of when it clicked, where I was like, when you enjoy something and it comes naturally to you, it's a privilege to be able to do that for a living. And so if you're in a place in your life where you can do what you enjoy, that's a special privilege, and I wanted to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and that kind of segues nicely into the whole brand aspect, because some people struggle with that, and it's so important, and it is part of the foundation of your business. What is your brand? And I struggle with it, and we all do. But you have to find something there that's very meaningful, and it has a lot of definitions to it. What is your process? I mean, how do you go about that process of establishing one's brand? I know it's not a simple, 1-2 sentence answer, but how do you go about discovering what that brand could be, and then obviously kind of, expanding on that, or helping them kind of
Yeah.
really introduce it themselves?
Yeah, I think, I mentioned early on, like, I care about people. I'm a people person. I love people, which is kind of oxymoronic that I work with content and
Right.
social media,
Right.
which doesn't really seem very, interpersonal. But I think it starts with listening. You have to sit down with someone, and you have to care enough to listen, and you have to listen first. So usually when you listen to someone, you find out why they got into what they got into, what their purpose is, what their goal is. And I like to work with people who there's some meaning to what they're doing. They have a meaningful goal. It's not just transactional. They really want to help the community or help people in some kind of way, whatever it might be. So I feel like that process kind of starts with listening, getting to know the entrepreneur or the creative or the business owner. Listen to them, find out what that story is they want to communicate, find out how they'd like to communicate it, and then that's where I kind of come in with the creative direction and setting up photo shoots and everything.
Yeah, you because we're in the same business. I enjoy that process too, because everyone's different, everyone's unique, everyone's got a story, and really cultivating that story and turning it into something, including a business, is challenging, but it's
Mhm.
very rewarding, and to watch it happen is pretty special.
Yeah.
So I get all that. So that's interesting. Let me ask you something. What type of people or businesses do you feel more connected to, or prefer working with? I know everyone's a client, but is there a specific space that you prefer or
Hmm.
like working with from a
Yeah.
people perspective?
And I mean, everyone is a client, but at the same time, you're not always going to connect, with certain businesses or certain people. So I think it's okay to be selective. I respect other people's right to meet me and see my process and feel like they don't connect to it. That's okay. I'm out there looking for the right people to collaborate with, because it is a collaboration. So I would say people who have a meaningful story or a meaningful purpose. Kind of like I said before, like it's not just about money for them or just about, the bottom line or just something transactional, but there's more behind it than
Oh
that.
yeah.
And
Oh
that's what I connect to.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that would be me. So I guess that's why we had a great connection.
Yeah.
So let's go. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the Soundplex, because I always like to ask people, their first time here, what was their experience like? And you certainly had a wonderful experience because it was a wonderful event. But tell us about the process of you coming into the building and experiencing it for the first time. And then you posted some things about it, but then you thought about it. I know you thought about it. What were those thoughts? And also share that first time walking into the building and what you felt.
Yeah, I think what stood out to me right away was really just like the genius that is the Soundplex, just the fact that it was like just teeming with possibility, like events, recording studio, podcast studio, like all these things under one roof, but also curated in such a way that it's almost bespoke to a certain time period. Time periods. And
Yes.
those time periods are not the present.
No.
So it almost felt like a little bit of an escape from the outside world and kind of stepping back in time to times in history that I appreciate and that I connect with. So
Yeah.
first
Wow.
impressions.
That was well said, because it's certainly not from this time. That's for sure. Because I appreciate history a lot, and I don't go that far back, but just the history of my life, and the experiences I had growing up, and you kind of see some of that here, not just in the music, but even in the decor, et cetera. Because I'm a real kind of decor person. My bedroom, I always was moving my bed around and moving the bureau somewhere different.
So was I.
And changing it up.
Yeah.
I never kind of got locked in a way, but and I know, you mentioned it felt different, and that feeling is kind of special. So from that point on, we had these discussions, and as a creative, what do you think a space like this allows people to do that they normally can't do?
Yeah, it was different. Every detail was intentional here. And I really did appreciate that. But I think that creativity often needs like the right environment in which to grow, much like plants.
Yep. Yep.
But
I'd love to see your garden. Do you have a great garden or what?
my garden's not that impressive, actually,
Geez.
because I'm more of an indoor gardener. So now if you saw my place, if you saw my house and you saw the plants inside, my husband says we live in a jungle, so I'll put it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I'll put it to you like that. But I feel like, a space like SoundPlex really allows people to think bigger, dream louder, collaborate in ways that they can't on their own. And I think that is really what like this space gives people that room to do.
Yeah, and I always thought of it as a place to inspire people as well, because sometimes you walk into a room, it could be a hotel or even a restaurant, you look around for a little bit and then you're done. But here, every wall has something that's interesting and different. And just the way that things are organized and the lighting, et cetera, it kind of keeps people on their toes in regards to what they're thinking about, how they're thinking about it, and where that imagination can run based on what business that person might be in, or even just a musician or an artist or whatever it might be. But it's always cool to get everyone's response to that. So we talked briefly that night and then met shortly after. What made you want to continue the conversation with me? Because that night we literally, I think we talked for a few minutes, and then we had a phone call or whatever. But what inspired you to say, okay, I got to talk to this guy again, and let's meet and face to face and have this discussion? Was there anything in particular, or just everything in general?
I think, both. But I also think, the world is changing every day, not for the better. And I think that what people are really craving is connection, real connection to one another, but also a connection to the past, to yesterday, to kind of like the values that we lost and all the great things from the past that have not carried over. So I think that intrigued me so much, and it was like so my vibe that I was like, I would like to really keep talking and see what we could do together, how we could collaborate.
That's kind of the whole foundation of this space. We talk about connection all the time, and you see it every day, the way people operate, even just walking down the street. A lot of people have difficulty even looking you in the eye. People live through their phones, and that's not how life is, or life should be. Life should be face to face, and just getting to know people in that kind of realm is always more special than meeting a bunch of people via social media or whatever. So that's what I'm trying to build here, a place where people can connect. And that's kind of bringing us into the topic of the Plex Collective, because we had talked about this at length. And, obviously you're part of that team, which is going to help me introduce this new concept. And we're excited about it. But as we spoke several times, it's a very dynamic topic, and with my life, nothing's written in stone. And I would imagine that happens with you too, because as a creative, you're always creative. It doesn't stop. You can get to a point and then all of a sudden you're thinking along another line. So when it comes to the Plex Collective, and the basic concept of kind of bringing people in here to introduce a space where they can kind of work, create content, et cetera, et cetera. What's your thoughts on that whole premise about having kind of a model like that where people can kind of collaborate, they can connect, but they can also be very specific about what they want to do, but be inspired to do that process within a kind of a complex like this with the team of people that were wrapping around this?
Yeah, I think a lot of people really craving some kind of a creative home. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, artists, professionals, small business owners, people launching personal brands, they are creating and building and developing on their own. And so I think a place like the Plex allows them to kind of have like a community built in, a team, so that they don't have to do it alone. And then ideas, relationships, progress, it all happens faster when you're surrounded by the right people and in the right place.
Yeah, and I think when you bring those types of people together, everyone, no one's satisfied with, how things are going.
Hmm.
Okay, it's just that's the common denominator out there. So this space, when you get people together, all of a sudden you might have a musician talking to an artist or a musician talking to a marketer, and all these ideas pop up. So I always thought it would be best to get people to like that together because me and you being a creative, we had some great conversations. And, in essence, that's what it's all about. Because once you start greasing those wheels, all of a sudden they start moving faster. And then you're
Hmm.
coming up with different ideas and different concepts. And I think as human beings, that's inherent in us. And it's important that we think that way. And that's why I created this space so we can kind of, leverage that, the complex to do that. So
Hmm.
let's do this because I think you've done some really good work for us already. So if you don't mind, I want to show a few clips of some of the work that you did
Okay.
just in the recent photo shoot that you did about a week or so ago that were real interesting. And then we'll talk a little bit about them and then we'll move to the conclusion of this. But I want to show some of Cristine's work and also some other work that she's done for other clients just to give you a kind of a taste of her ability in being creative. Okay, folks, we're back, and great stuff, isn't it? And we'll talk a little bit about some of that work in a few minutes, but I wanted to kind of expand on some things here. When you say you said something to me that stuck about people needing a place like this. Can you expand on that? Give me your really good inner perspective on that.
Yeah. Again, a lot of people are going it alone, and it makes it harder. And I hate to sound cliche, work smarter, not harder, but it's always hard to go it alone, especially when you can collaborate and work with different people, and they can help you, and you can help them. So I feel like something like the Collective really creates the kind of cross pollination where ideas, opportunities, and relationships can kind of connect and grow faster. And that's what, bringing different people like that all under one roof, that is going to allow that to happen. So it's going to be a really special thing.
Yeah, because I notice now everyone's in silos. You might have a SEO person here. You might have a a landing page or website guy here, and then you have a social media person, and they're not talking to one another, and they're not even talking to you that much. They're doing their thing, and they're generating revenues, but it's not cohesive.
Right.
So having everyone under one roof, and then allowing those people to come in, because as members, and it's a membership, they'll be here and they'll be able to watch processes, podcasts, broadcasts, photo shoots, video shoots, whatever it might be. So now they're watching a process, they're getting a little bit more handle on how it works. And then when they start, working with the team, we're all in one cohesive unit that's, basically here to kind of help them obviously strategize, tell their story, because that's another thing. I mean, we talk about story all the time, and storytelling, even in this place, is very important. But kind of putting that all together and in a cohesive way that makes sense for him or her and their business, and getting some exposure. So storytelling's big in your business, am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think some people struggle with that? And I know that's kind of a question off the top of my but why do you think people struggle with that? Because we don't. I mean, I think I can tell stories all day long, but I think sometimes people, maybe they're not being honest with themselves. I don't know. Is there anything in particular
Well,
that you
I think
feel about that?
partially, like low self-esteem is at an all-time high. People
Yeah.
battle a lot of self-doubt, and I think I experienced it when I wanted to go out on my own and start my business. I just felt like I'm an imposter, I don't qualify, but it was sharing my journey with other people and going to other people for ideas and for feedback and things. I got a lot of confidence from others telling me things. So I feel like people need that. They need a community. And I feel like when you share your story, when you share your why I want to do this, this is the path I'm seeing ahead for this business or whatever, and you get feedback from other people, they instill you with confidence, they inspire you, they kind of spark you to have like a little bit more confidence in yourself. And then it builds from there as you keep meeting different people and sharing your story, and you get ideas from people and you share ideas with them. So storytelling is important, and I think that it's part of the glue that sort of connects us all.
Right.
When we have the courage to share our story, we can cement really cool relationships and really, really great collaborations.
Yeah, that's the one unique part of everyone is their story, and no two are the same. I mean, there might be some similarities, but everyone has a very unique part of them that is special, and we need to bring that out of them to really allow them to kind of leverage their uniqueness in whatever their objectives are. Whether it's just a personal thing, like they want personal development or business development. We kind of want to be a one-stop shop for all that. And I think you really hit the nail on the head about bringing people together and giving them confidence. You're right, self-confidence is lacking, and it's a shame. But I think there's a way to do it and improve on it here. And I think it's inherent in human beings to be together and connect and interact. So once you start getting them there and they start doing that, it slowly builds that confidence up, which is pretty special. So, and we're going to introduce the Plex Collective at an event on May 7th, and we would welcome you folks to come on out. It's free. RSVP. Cristine will be here, and she'll be doing a dance. She'll talk about plants and all that other stuff, but it should be fun. And so for someone thinking about coming, what would you say to them? If someone's out there and they're saying, maybe I should go to that, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I think come experience it for yourself. I think if you're looking for something that's going to like spark your next chapter of whatever your endeavor is, whether it be creative, music, your business, your idea, I think if you're looking for something to really spark that next chapter, be in that room. Come curious, come ready to connect with people. Just come and see what happens.
I'm coming. I'm definitely going. All right, cool. And I think people that are naturally drawn to this, I know a lot. There was a lot of low-hanging fruit out there that I sent the RSVP to, and I knew certain people would jump all over that. But I think people from all walks of life, I mean, don't you agree that it doesn't even really necessarily have to be about business. It can just be you personally. Like, hey, I want to get out, and I don't want to go to a bar. I don't want to go to a networking meeting, but I want to go somewhere where it's not home. It's your third place. We talk about that all the time. It's not your home. It's not your work. It's your third place. Because I think we all need that. Yeah. And I think this is going to be an escape for some folks that may not have a business objective. They might just have an objective just to get out and mix it up a little bit. So, that's the idea. But do you see that the same way as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think if you're just craving connection, in-person conversation, in-person connection with other people, a community to be a part of, absolutely. Come check it out.
Yeah. And because Cristine's really good at what she does, and I liked her right off the bat, I said, you know what? And she said to me the first time I met her, this is a lot of things for a lot of people. So I said, okay, great. So I'm going to throw some other ideas at you. So I came up with this Mocktails and Music because I'm starting to see the rage here where people are going to these sober events and they're having mocktails and they're listening to music, whether that's digital music or we now have record players and I have about 1,000 records here. So we'll play some vinyl and listen to music the old school way, but just making it a gathering place for people to come in. It's not a bar. You don't have to drink. But you can have a mocktail. You can sit relaxing with, 3, 4, 6 friends and have a quiet discussion. Because sometimes you go to some of these places, even sports bars, you can't even hear people talk. Yeah. So we wanted to have that kind of gathering place. So I mentioned that to Cristine. So what do you think about that concept?
Yeah, I love it. It feels so nostalgic. And I think that, again, it's going to be all the things that people are losing that they really crave. In-person connection, sober speakeasy. Speakeasies are cool. Speakeasies are cool and people love the vibe and everything. But if you're trying to be more healthy and not drink as much alcohol, like this is definitely going to be your jam, and it's definitely worth coming to check out.
That's awesome. And I'm excited to introduce that. We're going to introduce that sometime in June. So we'll be sharing some more stuff or material on that. But some of the social media stuff we'll be posting out there in the next few days and weeks for the next, and even the next few months. So we've really created a lot of content, and we'll share some of that as well during this videotape. And we'll do that right now, actually. We'll share some of more Cristine stuff. We'll show you a clip or two, and then we'll finish up with the conclusion. Okay, folks? So that's good stuff, isn't it, folks? I like some of the material. When she first put it together, I saw someone like, oh, boy, did I nail it with finding someone like this who saw the nostalgia of the place, because you even came up with that. You're like, you got to go with the nostalgic theme. I love nostalgia. But you really hit the nail on the head. So I want to thank you for that. And that was great work.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yep. Cristine, for anyone watching, what's one thing you'd want them to think about when it comes to their story or how they show up in the world today?
I think I would want everybody to remember that your story matters. And even if it's not perfect, even if it's not polished, even if it's not wrapped up in a pretty little package, it matters. And the most important thing is just take the first step with your idea, your art, your business venture, whatever it is. Just show up and trust the process. And you don't force it, just kind of let it flow. And organically, your story, your product, whatever it might be, it will reach who it's meant to reach.
That's a great way to end the show there. And I appreciate that because, for me and Cristine, we see eye to eye on a lot of things. And it's great to have her working with us now. And there's good synergy. So you can meet Cristine live here on May 7th at the Plex Collective introduction. She'll also be here probably one day at least, and maybe 2 days a week going forward for folks that kind of join the Plex Collective, and more details on that later. I think everyone's going to jump on board because it's an interesting model and I think it's needed. And I think we have something that could be very beneficial to them personally and professionally. But I also want to let people know that the Mocktails and Vinyl or music launch will be happening sometime in June. So make note of that. You'll start seeing some more information, more clear information in regards to dates, what kind of fees and what kind of mocktails might be of interest. We might have some really cool signature mocktails, et cetera. But this is the local lens. I want to thank Cristine for coming in today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
It was great meeting you again. And I'm glad we can share your perspective on this place and what we're doing together with the folks out there. And I'm excited to see what happens in the future. And maybe we do this even on a monthly or quarterly basis where we share the processes and how things are working and really kind of tell the folks that haven't been here yet to really get on board and get into SoundPlex Studios. So thanks again, Cristine.
Sounds
I
great.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you, folks. Bye-bye.